Good morning. If you're new to this channel, hi, it's nice to meet you. My name is Milena. But if you're a returning subscriber, well, welcome back. Furthermore, if you've seen any of my university-related content, then you know that I'm a second-year university student studying at Erasmus University of Rotterdam, which is in the Netherlands, and I'm studying economics. And at this point in my life, I've spent a pretty large portion of it studying. And if you're like me, you may have the occasional study stress. And so I'm here today to share with you my favorite tips on how to manage stress and how I've been doing it for the last couple of years. So I've mentioned this in previous videos, but I always recommend you to start off with a syllabus calendar. Because you know that feeling when you're gonna go study and you just realize I don't even know where to start, you know? Like all the content is just kind of merged into one thing and you can't really visualize what you're trying to learn. And so with the syllabus calendar, you can have a visual way to know exactly what you have to study and how much that actually is. And so the steps to making a syllabus calendar starts with number 1. Get a calendar. Make a calendar, write a calendar, design a calendar. Anything that will let you know the days of the month, that's good enough. That's the first step. And then you take your syllabus and all the information that your lecturer or your professors or your teachers have given you, and you write exactly what you learned in each day. This might be easier for university students because we're often already given a syllabus with the dates in which contents are learned, but even for high school students, you can more or less remember what you learned every week or every day. You can also fill in your syllabus calendar as you go along so that you can keep track of what you've learned and what you are learning. If it's like the 4th or 5th week of your course and you think, well, we've learned quite a lot. Let me track what we just learned. And let's say you don't have a general overview of everything you've learned and you just have, your notes and all the things that you wrote in your notebook, then yeah, the content seems overwhelming. It just feels like a lot of stuff that you all of a sudden have to understand. But if you have this calendar, then I assure you that the content is not going to look as daunting when you're trying to study it. Another benefit of having a syllabus calendar is that, let's say you've had an off week. Let's say in the 3rd week, you know that you were out of it. You were tired, you're not sure why, but you didn't sleep properly. Then what you can do with your syllabus calendar is you can go back to that week where you know that you weren't really paying attention, and you can see exactly what you missed. You don't have to guess or worry about, oh, what if they talked a little bit more about this or talked a little bit more about that. If you have this calendar that clearly outlines what you learned in that week that you might have missed, then you're less likely to miss content, and also you are less likely to stress yourself out about content that you might have missed. For example, this week I'm studying for midterms, and before I started studying, I looked over my syllabus calendar and I realized it was just 6 lectures, 4 tutorials, and it couldn't have been more than 20 concepts. And to put 20 concepts into perspective, imagine if someone asked you to explain the plot of 20 movies. Would you be like, oh my god, 20 movies, that's a lot of movies? No, you'd probably be like, alright, here we go. Mean Girls, Shrek, Shrek 2, Shrek 3. And the list would go on. The point is that when you write these things down, when it comes to studying them, you're not feeling like you don't know where to start, or you feel like there's just too much that you don't really know what to prioritize. And my next study tip is what I like to call the net force. And this study tip is based off of Newton's first law of motion, which states, an object at rest will remain at rest until a net force acts on it, and an object in motion will remain in motion unless a net force acts on it. And so I apply this law of motion to studying, because basically all you need is just one really big push to keep it moving, and then you'll stay moving. The first couple of minutes, that's usually a tough time. That's where you have to put the most amount of energy, but it really just takes a little extra force to be able to get your studying in motion. And that's why I call this study tip the net force, because you're the object that has to get into motion, and you need a net force to push you. And that net force is also you. And so to break down this method, you basically just have to write down 3 things that you want to do that day that are your priority. If it is to review an exam, or to do exercises, or to rewatch lectures. Figure out 3 things that you prioritize and write those down pretty darn big on a piece of paper or whatever you're writing on. And then under it, write 5 more things that you would like to get done. And so when you start doing those 3 things that you prioritized, you're gonna start realizing that you're kind of on a roll and you're gonna want to keep going. And so by having listed 5 other things that you want to get done but aren't necessarily urgent or a priority, you give yourself more chance to continue on in motion. See, I gotta tell you, I use this method a lot. And I always like to compete with myself when it comes to using it. Because what I do is I always write those 3 prioritized things, and then I add as many extra things as I can. One time I had 3 priorities and like another 30 things that I could do, and I try to get as many things done as possible. Once you finish the main 3 things, you get a feeling of accomplishment. You've done what you had to do, and now these other things are little bonuses, little things that will get you ahead. And trust me that once you get started, it's gonna be hard to stop. And before I started using this method, I used to just make really long to-do lists, which basically just gave like the equal weight to each to-do thing. And so that genuinely just overwhelmed me. And so by having 3 things that you prioritize, you focus on what's right in front of you and you make sure to get that done. And plus, you'll probably be too busy studying to feel study stress. Because if you're actually keeping yourself in motion, you don't think, oh, what if I don't know this? What if I don't know that? Well, that doesn't matter for that moment. What you're focusing is one thing. Figure that one thing out and then keep moving. And you know what else could be a really large source of your stress? The fact that you're not subscribed to this channel. So make sure to press that little button down below and join the community, because we're planning on improving ourselves in all aspects of our lives and we'd love to have you join. But moving on to my next tip, which is the I don't know method. And you might be thinking, well, that doesn't sound like a very good study tip. If you're stressed, it's usually because you don't know the content or you feel that you don't know the content. And what a lot of people do, and I gotta tell you, I used to do this too, is they take a test or exercises or quizzes that they know how to do. They decide to just do the questions that they know how to answer. And usually they kind of just skip over the ones that they're kind of iffy about. So they just leave it for later because, you know, you don't know how to answer them. So answer them later. Which clearly, if you're hearing this from me at this point, that doesn't sound like a very good method if you're trying to study. Because if you do really well on a practice exam that you knew you were gonna do well in, that just confirmed that you're good at the thing that you knew you were good at, which is great for your ego, but probably really bad for your grades. And so this method is extremely humbling because what you do is you sit down and you write all the things that you don't understand. If it's terms or concepts or methods, everything that you think, okay, I don't really get it, you write it down. And then you start with the first thing. Just start with the first thing that you don't get and see if you can get it. Because those are actually the things that could trip you up during the exam. And listen, you have got to be honest. You have to write down the things that you don't understand, and it can be a pretty long list. But it's not like raising your hand in class, because no one will know that you didn't know. The only person that's reflecting on the things that you don't know is yourself. Homeboy Socrates once said, "I know that I know nothing." That's known as the Socratic paradox. The fact that you are very much aware that there are things that you don't understand might make you more open to trying to understand them. And so through this I don't know method, you recognize that you don't know. And that's completely okay. That's actually expected from people who are studying. You're supposed to not understand things, and then by studying, you understand them. You see, it's a cause and effect situation. And so it is through these 3 tips that I manage my stress. And don't get me wrong, sometimes I do still feel stressed, but the point isn't to not feel stressed. It's to manage it, to understand how to channel it into a really pretty syllabus calendar or a really good to-do list. And that right there is a life lesson. You're gonna feel stress. That's inevitable. But you shouldn't feel overwhelmed by it. You can manage it. And hopefully with these 3 things that we talked about today, you can do just that. Alright, so I'll see you guys next time, but till then, take care, stay safe, wash your hands, bye!